recording a video watching Wendigoon today. I plan on sharing a couple more of these long form video things that I like to watch on my free time, just here and there. I think it'd be fun just to share the things I like to watch with you. So let's go.
At some point it would make sense to invest in an actual candle.
Old
Hello everybody.
Wendigoon video.
Once again, we are back for another spooky video, and this time it will be a little different. I have come down with something, potentially the Coof, probably not. It might be the Coof. This one is going to be more of a read-along. I'd rather you go in rather blind to what the subject is, but I'll have you know it is about the stairs in the woods, and more specifically, stories relating to a specific search and rescue ranger and his encounters with them. I want to say before I begin, thank you all for watching. I'll try to get through this with my sore throat, and we'll see how it goes. Patreon thanks will be at the end as usual, but once again, just thank you guys for watching. To give some context for this, it is a line of stories told from the Reddit thread, "I'm a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service. I have some stories to tell," which the link to the original post will be in the description below, but he talks throughout the story about Wendigos and missing kids cases and other creepy stuff that I may cover in the future. But for now, I just want to highlight the parts about the stairs in the woods. So in the first section, it's the first time he mentions it, so I'll just start there. This is the last one I'll tell, and it's probably the weirdest story I have. Now, I don't know if this is true in every search and rescue unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken, regular thing we run into. You can try asking about it with other search and rescue officers, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything about it. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors, and at this point, we've all gotten so used to it that it doesn't even seem weird anymore. On just about every case that we're really far out into the wilderness, I'm talking 30 or 40 miles, at some point we'll find a staircase in the middle of the woods. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw some, and the other officer just told me not to worry about it, that it was normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing, and I wanted to check them out, but I was told, very empathetically, that I should never go near any of them. I just sort of ignore them now when I run into them, because it happens so frequently. One of my first jobs as a trainee was a search op for a 4-year-old that had gotten separated from his mom. This was one of those cases where we knew we were going to find him because the dogs were on a strong scent trail, and we saw clear signs that he was in the area. We ended up finding him in a berry patch about half a mile from where he'd been last seen. Kid wasn't even aware that he'd wandered that far. One of the vets brought him back, which I was glad for because I'm really not good with kids, and I find it hard to talk to them and keep them company. As my trainer and I are heading back, she decides to take me on a detour to show me one of the hot spots where we tend to find missing people. It's a natural dip in the land near a popular trail, and people will usually move downhill because it's easier. We hike out there. It's a few miles away, and we get there in about an hour or so. As we're walking around the area and she's pointing out places she's found people in the past, I see something in the distance. Now, this area we're in is about 8 miles from the main parking area. Though there's back roads you can take to get closer if you don't want to hike that far. But we're on a state-protected land, which means that there can't be any kind of commercial or residential development out here. The most you'll ever see is a fire tower or makeshift shelter that homeless people think they can get away with building. But I can see from here that whatever this thing is has straight edges, and if there's one thing you can learn quickly, it's that nature rarely makes straight lines. I point it out, but she doesn't say anything. She just hangs back and lets me wander over and check it out. I get within about 20 feet of it, and all the hair on the back of my neck stands up. It's a staircase in the middle of the woods. In the proper context, it would literally be the most benign thing ever. It's just a normal staircase with beige carpet and about 10 steps tall. But instead of being in a house, where it obviously should be, it's out here in the middle of the woods. The sides aren't carpeted, obviously, and I can see the wood it's made of. It's almost like a video game glitch, where the house has failed to load completely and the stairs are the only thing visible. I stand there, and it's like my brain is working overtime to try to make sense of what I'm seeing. My trainer comes and stands next to me, and she just stands there casually, looking at it as if it's the least interesting thing in the world.
I ask her what this thing is doing here, and she just chuckles. Get used to it, rookie. You're going to see a lot of them.
Thanks.
I start
That
to
makes
move
me feel
closer, but she
so
grabs
much
my
better.
arm. Hard. I wouldn't do that, she says. Her
Don't
voice is
touch me.
casual, but her grip is tight, and I just stand there looking at her. You're going to see them all the time, but don't go near them. Don't touch them. Don't go up them. Just ignore them.
It's so
I start
funny
to ask
because
her
they give me
about
big
it,
back
and something in the way she's
energy,
looking at me tells me it's
and
best
I
if I
literally
don't.
just spent all
We end up
day
moving on,
brushing up
and the
like,
subject
gain
doesn't come up
pixels
again
back
for the
on
rest of my
Google and
training.
stuff like that.
She was
Crazy.
right, though. I'd
The
say
timing
about
is
every
wild.
fifth call I go on, I end up running across a set of stairs. Sometimes they're relatively close to the path, maybe within 2 or 3 miles. Sometimes they're 20, 30 miles out, literally in the middle of nowhere, and I only find them during the broadest searches or training weekends. They're usually in good condition, but sometimes it looks like they've been out there for months.
I'm listening to them put it in the cat.
All different kinds, all different sizes. The biggest I ever saw looked like they came out of a turn-of-the-century mansion and were at least 10 feet wide, with steps leading up at least 15 or 20 feet. I've tried talking about it with people, but they just give me the same response my trainer did. It's normal, don't worry about it, they're not a big deal. But don't go close to them or up them. When trainees ask about it now, I give them the same response. I don't really know what else to tell them. I'm really hoping someday I get a better answer, but it hasn't happened yet. In the next story, the search and rescue officer is talking about an interaction that his friend had with the staircase. And the author says this: My buddy has been a search and rescue officer for about 7 years. He started when he was a junior in college, and he had a very similar experience when he first encountered the stairs. His trainer told him almost the same thing mine did, which was never to go near,
Don't touch
touch, or ascend them.
Yep.
For the first year, he did just that, but apparently his curiosity got the better of him, and on one call, he broke away from the line and went to go check a set of them out.
Uh-oh.
He said they were about 10 miles from the path where a teenage girl had vanished, and the dogs were following a scent. He was on his own, lagging behind the main group, when he saw a set of stairs off to his left. They looked like they were from a new house, because the carpeting was pristine and white. He said that as he got closer, he didn't feel any different or hear any weird noises. He was expecting something to happen, like bleeding from his ears or collapsing, but he got right up next to them and didn't feel a thing. The only thing, he said, that was odd was that there was absolutely no debris on the steps. No dirt, leaves, dust, or anything. And there didn't appear to be any signs of animal or insect activity in the immediate area, which he found strange. It was less like things were avoiding them and more like they just happened to be in a relatively barren part of the forest. He touched the stairs and didn't feel anything except the sort of sticky feeling you get from new carpet. Making sure his radio was on, he slowly climbed the stairs. He said it was terrifying because the way they'd been stigmatized, he wasn't really sure what was going to happen to him. He joked that half of him
Brother,
expected to be
why,
teleported to
sir?
some other dimension,
Why do you
and
stress me out? You
other
stress
half
me
of
out.
him was watching
Like,
for a
to
UFO
no
to come
end, you
swooping
stress me
down.
out. Oh my god.
But he got to the top with little event, and he stood there looking around. But, he said, the longer he stood on the top step, the more he felt like he was doing something very, very wrong. He described it as the feeling you'd get if you were in a part of a government building that you had no business being in. As if someone was going to come and arrest you or shoot you in the back of the head at any second. He tried to brush it off, but the feeling got stronger and stronger, and that's when he realized that he couldn't hear anything. The sounds of the forest were gone, and he couldn't hear his own breathing. It was like some kind of weird, awful tinnitus, but more oppressive. He climbed back down to rejoin the search and didn't mention what he'd done. But, he said, the weirdest part came after. His trainer was waiting back at the Welcome Center after the search ended for the day, and he cornered my buddy before he could leave. He said his trainer had this look of intense anger, and he asked what was wrong. You went up them, didn't you?
You know, he
My buddy
knew,
said it
he
wasn't
knew.
phrased as a question. He asked how his trainer knew, and the trainer just shook his head.
No. Oh,
because
no.
we didn't find her. The dogs lost her scent.
Oh no.
My buddy asked what that had to do with anything. The trainer asked how long he'd been on the stairs, and my buddy said no more than a minute.
Ouch.
The trainer gave him this really awful, almost dead-eyed look, and told him that if he ever went up another set of stairs again, he'd be fired immediately. The trainer walked away, and I guess he's never answered any of the questions my buddy's asked about him since. Now, I don't want to give too much of it away, especially with what comes later, but it is my theory that these stairs in the woods are a sort of interdimensional construct. Sort of as if there are different layers or parallel universes existing together, and these stairs sort of act as passageways between them.
Okay.
As we get into more details later, I'll explain how this makes sense, but my idea moving forward is that they're not just not of the woods, but not of this dimension itself. The next story opens with an introduction from the author.
So again, very background.
The next person I talked to was EW, a former trainer who now works as an EMT. He still comes to ops like this to help out, but doesn't work full-time for us anymore. He specialized in finding lost kids. He just seemed to have a sixth sense when it came to knowing where they'd gone. He's a legend among the more senior vets, but he gets embarrassed if you compliment him on his work. He sat down with me at dinner one evening, and we ended up swapping stories. Most of them were just casual, but when we got to the subject of weirder calls, I mentioned that I had a buddy who'd gone up a set of stairs. He got kind of quiet and asked me if I heard of a little boy who disappeared from the park a few years back. I hadn't, so he told me this story. They were out looking for this 11-year-old boy, Joey, who'd gone missing near a river. Of course, the first thought was that he'd fallen in and drowned, but when they brought dogs out, they led search and rescue officers away from the river and up into a very densely forested area. When we do searches for people, we search in a grid pattern, and we search every box of the grid incredibly thoroughly. What EW's team noticed right away was that the very strange pattern was emerging. Dogs in alternating boxes were picking up Joey's scent, but losing it when they overlapped with another box. If you think of it like a checkerboard, Joey's scent was being picked up in random black squares, but never in red. This, of course, didn't make any sense, because how could the kid bounce from one area to another area without leaving a scent in each place he passed? EW and his partner pass into a new box of the grid, and EW notice a set of stairs about 50 yards away. He tells his partner that they need to check near it, but his partner flat out refuses. He tells EW that he's made it a point to never go any stairs he sees, and that while it may be routine, he's not to pretend that it's normal. He tells EW that he'll wait inside while EW checks. EW says he was irritated, but he felt for the guy and didn't push him on the subject. I walked over to the stairs. They were small, kind of like stairs into a basement. I don't feel strongly one way or the other about them. The stairs, I mean. So I wasn't scared or anything. I guess I'm like everyone else, and I just prefer not to think about them too much. Anyway, I went over and I could see that there was something lying on the bottom step, sort of curled up. My heart sinks, because of course you always hope for the best, and we were confident that we'd find this kid alive because he'd only been missing for a few hours, but I knew right away that it was him and that he was dead. He was curled up in a little ball on the step, holding his stomach. It looked like he'd been in horrible pain when he died, but I didn't see any blood except for some on his lips and chin. I radioed in that I'd found him, and we got his body back to command. That poor family, they were devastated. The parents couldn't understand how he'd be dead because he'd only been gone for such a short amount of time. And on top of that, we didn't have any obvious cause of death, which just made it worse. I figure he probably eaten something poisonous since he was holding his stomach when I found him, but I didn't want to guess. It's hard enough to hear that your kid is dead, let alone have some stupid search and rescue guy guessing about what happened. They took him away, and I went home and tried not to think about it. I hate finding dead kids, man. I love this job, but it's one of the reasons I left. I've got two daughters, and the thought of losing them that way just... He choked up a little bit here. I'm not great with emotional stuff like that, and it's always sort of awkward to see a grown man cry. So I didn't really know what to do. He pulled himself together eventually, though, and kept going. We don't always hear back from the coroners about cause of death. It's not really our job to know, I guess, and sometimes if they think it's foul play, they won't tell us because of legal issues. But I've got a friend who works for the sheriff's department, and he'll usually pass along any interesting info if I ask. In this case, though, I actually got a call from him about a week later. He asked if I remember the kid, and of course I do, and he says some seriously weird stuff is going on. He tells me, EW man, you're going to think I'm crazy, but the coroner has no idea what happened to this kid. He's never seen anything like it. My friend goes on to tell me that when the coroner opened the kid up, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The kid's organs were like Swiss cheese. Quarter-sized holes were punched clean through just about every single organ this kid had, aside from his heart and lungs. But his colon, his stomach, his kidneys, and even one of his testicles were full of these clean holes. My friend said the coroner described it as if someone had taken a hole punch and punched holes out of everything. They were so neat. but the kid didn't have a scratch on him. No entry or exit wounds. The closest anyone had ever
Not
seen
neat as in he found them
was a guy who
interesting.
filled
Neat as
himself full
in
of
they are
buckshot a
tidy.
year or
Oh
so
my
back while
goodness.
cleaning his rifle.
Oh, that's horrifying.
Okay. No one had a clue what could possibly have caused it. My friend asked me if I had heard anything like it, or if we'd had similar cases in the past, but I never even heard of something like that, and I told him I wasn't going to be of any help to him. As far as I know, the coroner determined the cause of death as something like massive internal bleeding, but no one knows what really happened. I've never been able to forget that kid.
Swiss cheese.
I
I
have
don't
nightmares
understand.
about it
That's
sometimes.
crazy.
I don't let my kids go into the woods alone, and when they go together, I never let them out of my sight. I used to love it out here, but that case and a couple of others just sort of ruined it for me. Dinner was over, so we started to clean up and go back to our cabins. Before we went our separate ways, he put his hand on my shoulder and looked at me really close. He tells me that there's bad things out here, things that don't care if we have families or lives, or we can think and feel. He tells me to be careful and he walks away. I didn't have a chance to talk to him again, but that story stuck with me. So here we have a story of
that's not like
child's
it's
organs
not a very
being
fun,
essentially
exciting
stripped
story.
away
It's pretty
hole by
sad
hole,
and depressing.
assumedly whenever he comes into contact with the staircase. This goes back to the theory I mentioned before about the stairs being gateways into alternate planes, or at least a different realm, sort of where the spirit of the woods and stuff like that come from. The other stories I'm not mentioning detail various cryptids and monsters that our search and rescue officer runs into. So my idea here is that the woods are kind of bleeding over with these supernatural entities, and these stairs may be a way in and out. In our next story, we're going to see more explanation about it, but again, this further supports the idea that the stairs act as gateways. Immediately after the previous story, he leads into another experience that he's had with another search and rescue veteran. By pure coincidence, I got to talk to another vet, PB, who's been in the search and rescue field for years. We were partnered on a grid sweep during a training exercise, and we were chatting casually about how we liked the job, what kind of things we'd seen and the like. At one point, we passed an old set of stairs, though these were probably from an old fire lookout, given the area that we were in. I sort of casually mentioned that I was curious about the stairs and that I wished I knew more about them. He got kind of quiet and looked like he wanted to tell me something. Wasn't sure if he should. Finally, he told me to turn my radio off. Obviously, this is something we were never ever supposed to do, but I did and he did the same.
Yeah. Did you spit? Sorry.
About 7 years ago, he tells me, he was out on a call with a rookie. They were in the area of a park that's had a lot of strange reports and events. Disappearances, stories about lights in the forest, odd noises, things like that.
Oh, fun.
The rookie was totally spooked, kept going on and on about things in the woods, according to PB. The guy wouldn't stop talking about the goat man, just on and on. Goat man this, goat man that. Finally, I told him that there was plenty else to be afraid of out here that was very real, that he'd better get over this thing with the goat man. The rookie wanted to know what kind of things I was talking about, and I just told him to shut up and walk.
He
crested a little ridge, and there was a staircase about 10 yards ahead. The rookie stops dead in his tracks and just stands there looking at them. I tell him, see, that's something you should be afraid of. The rookie asks me what these are doing out here, and for some reason, I just open up and tell him the truth, or what I've been told is the truth. I could have gotten in a lot of trouble for doing what I did, and I could have got in trouble for repeating it to you. But you're a nice kid, and I want you to stop looking into this. Quit while you're ahead. So I'll tell you what I know under the condition that you never breathe a word of this to the soups. I told him I wouldn't say a word, and he double-checked that our radios are off. When I first started out, we were a little less tight-lipped about them, and other things that happened out here. We warned people before they were even hired that there was weird things going on. I guess the Forest Service was tired of such a massive turnover rate, and they wanted people to know what they were getting into.
You get out there and you realize
so
that the forest is haunted, and you're just like,
they wouldn't go to the media about what was going on. The Forest Service didn't want to scare people away, so the last thing they needed were spooked rookies running off to the media with stories of ghosts and haunted stairs. But eventually, they found that the agreements weren't necessary. People not only didn't want to talk about what they saw, but they wouldn't. A few times, media tried to talk to people when kids or hikers would disappear, and no one would say a word. I can't really explain it. I guess we just don't really want to admit anything is wrong. This is our job, and to be out in the woods every single day, we don't need to be spooked.
In the
and
grand
the best
scheme
way
of
to
things,
avoid
it's
that
not
is to pretend
technically
like
causing
everything's okay.
like
So I'll tell you everything I can think of, and after that, I'm done talking about it for good. And I expect you not to bring it up around me, ever.
Disaster, but the more people that
The stairs have been out here as long as the parks have existed. So it's like, we have records going back decades describing them. Sometimes people go up them and nothing happens. Other times, look, I really don't like talking about this, but sometimes really bad things happen. I saw one guy get his hand sliced clean off when he got to the top step. He reached out to touch a tree branch, and it happened so fast. 1 second his hand was there, the next it was gone. Completely clean wound. And we never found the hand. That guy almost died. Another time, a woman touched one of the stairs, and a blood vessel in her brain exploded. Literally exploded like a water balloon. She sort of stumbled down and came over to me, and all she got out was, "I think something is wrong with me." She dropped like a sack of flour, dead before she hit the ground. I'll never forget the way the blood leaked into the inside of her eye. Before she died, I watched it turn red. I watched it happen, and there wasn't a single thing I could do to help. We warn people not to go anywhere near them, but there's always at least one idiot who does. And even if nothing happens to them, something bad always happens. Kids go missing as we're on their trail. Sometimes dies the next day,
just like that one
cut in
earlier.
half, completely safe part of the park. I don't know why, but something bad always happens. I don't know exactly what.
Usually when I watch,
I don't know exactly why they're out here, but it doesn't matter. They're here, and if we were smart, we tell our new officers exactly what they're capable of. We were both quiet for a little while. I was afraid to talk because I wasn't sure if he was done. He looked like he wanted to say something else. Finally, he spoke up again. "Have you ever noticed that you can't find the same one twice?" I nodded, expecting him to continue, but he just stayed quiet, walking alongside me. And eventually he started a story about the biggest deer he'd ever seen in the park. I didn't bring up the subject again, and I didn't press him for any more stories. He dropped out of the op the next day. Apparently he left before the sun came up. He said he was sick. None of us have heard from him since he left. So this further goes into the idea that the stairs themselves are a supernatural gateway. Like the man who reached his hand out and it was supposedly sliced off or went into nowhere could have been his hand going through to another dimension or a spiritual plane. Same with the child who was curled up on the staircase and began sort of almost dissolving into another reality. Here we have a slightly shorter update from the author.
It was trying to transfer him over.
One of the vets at the training off reads No Sleep, and he recognized my stories. He knows me pretty well, and we swapped stories before. He asked if he could share something he's noticed about the stairs and some thoughts he had. I'm really glad you decided to share this. I think it's important that people be aware of what's out there, especially since the Forest Service is doing such a good job of covering it all up. I asked him what he meant. What do you mean, what do I mean? The lack of any kind of media attention, no coverage of missing kids or bodies found miles away from where they got lost in the first place. David Paulides hits it right on the head. The Forest Service is doing everything they can to keep people coming here, even if it isn't safe. I mean, to be fair, it's not like these things happen every day, but the numbers add up and it's worth looking into, especially the stairs. I was surprised you didn't mention the flipped ones. I didn't know what he was talking about. I couldn't remember him ever talking about something like that. He seemed somewhat incredulous. Dude, I can't believe you've been on this long without seeing them. No one told you about them? I shrugged and asked him to elaborate. Well, there's the normal stairs, the ones that pop up when you're a ways out. I know you know about them, but sometimes I've run across ones that are flipped upside down. I guess it would be like if you had a dollhouse and the stairs were a separate piece. Now take that, flip it upside down so the top step is stuck in the dirt, and put it out in the woods. They're like that. I don't see them as often, but they're odd to say the least. Makes me think of footage taken after a tornado when houses are all blown apart and random things are left standing, like chimneys and garden walls. Those ones freak me out more than the normal ones because I can't really write those off as easily. I don't scare very easily, but most of us who work out here, but that idea stuck with me. And it bothered me.
That you can just write off the fact that there are staircases
this goes into the idea of randomly
in the middle of the woods.
What is very creepy about this, if you could imagine the upright staircase as being a gateway into a different or separate plane of existence, then what would the upside down staircases be a gateway into? Perhaps one is a gateway in and the other is a gateway out. Or, I'm not sure. Let me know what you think.
I have not seen season 5.
In another story, the search and rescue officer is detailing a camping trip he has with fellow officers when he gets to this point. I switched the topic to the stairs a little later, and there was a definite shift in enthusiasm. No one spoke up at first. There's a real stigma around discussing them, even when we're away from work.
Yeah, apparently people
But I
die
broke
and
the
go
ice with a
missing
story of
around
my
them.
own,
I don't blame
and
them
the guy
one
who
bit.
told the story about the faceless man told this one, albeit very quietly. A couple years ago, I was camping with my girlfriend. We were at about 2 miles from the road at this site I know. We went to bed that night, but we couldn't sleep because... No, it was because we kept hearing that grinding noise. My brother used to grind his teeth in his sleep, and it kind of reminds me of that. My girlfriend was freaking out, but I just kept telling her to ignore it because I heard it before, and you just have to ignore it. It goes away eventually. You guys know what I mean.
What do you mean?
We all knew what he meant. So eventually I got her to go to sleep, but I woke up probably 2 hours later because something was just off. I rolled over and she wasn't there, and I kind of freaked out because he thought for a second and then he took a very long drink. Anyway, I ran out of the tent calling her name, but I didn't have to go far. She was standing at the edge of the camp looking at something in the trees, and I could see she was really pale. The fire was low but bright enough to see her. Anyway, so I ran up to see what she was going on, and she was dead asleep, but her eyes were open. She had this real spaced out look, you know. So I put my arm around her to lead her back, but she wouldn't move. She just said really quietly something like, "I have to go now."
What the fuck?
Eddie, I have to go. It's here. I was like, "You're just sleepwalking. Come back to bed," but she wouldn't budge. She kept standing there and saying that she had to go. And I looked where she was looking, and there was a staircase right there about 15 yards away.
Oh, it
Gray
wants
one,
to eat her.
concrete.
Oh no.
She started to walk toward it, but I yanked her back, and that woke her up. She looked at me like I was out of my mind, and she asked what she was doing out of the tent. I didn't tell her anything. I just told her she was sleepwalking. The grinding was gone, so she just went back to the tent with me and fell asleep again.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I just don't like thinking about it, you know?
Fair.
We all knew. You guys remember that kid with, I can't remember what it was, some kind of brain issue? Not Downs, but something like it.
What?
Someone else mentioned. Well, I got to read the report he gave when they found him a week after he went missing, and it was so weird beyond belief. I mean, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because who knows what that kid actually thinks is real, but some of the stuff I don't think he could have made up. Like what? Well, first of all, he talked about the stairs. He said he'd been watching his dad build a fire and the stairs came up to him, and he had to go up them or something bad would happen. The cops couldn't really understand what he was talking about after that because he just kept saying, like the campfire, over and over. And he kept mentioning sounds, but he couldn't say what sounds, just that it was loud, and he covered his ears so he couldn't hear them. But the thing I remember most is that they asked him where exactly he'd gone, and he just said he was right there. He kept pointing at himself, and they said that they thought that meant he never left. He said he wasn't scared because the stairs were there, and he said they talked to him, but not like people talk. Like I said, it was really convoluted and hard to understand, and I have a feeling the cops didn't take most of it down. They ended up just saying that the kid had some kind of amnesia or fugue, and that they didn't think foul play was involved. Doesn't really explain why they came back a week later perfectly fine, without a speck of dirt on him and well fed. But hey, what the cop says goes. So we see here in the beginning of the story, there is a woman who seems almost possessed to go out to the stairs. And in the second one, we see a child that did go the stairs and said that it was like the campfire over and over, and says that there were great sounds. Now, one of the stories that didn't have to do with the stairs, search and rescue officer mentions that there was a great loud sound that approached him on one of his times out, and I think it's related to this. The boy saw something absolutely incomprehensible, specifically when he said like the campfire. Not only that, but he talked about loud noises and kept saying that he was right here and pointing towards his chest. This seems like a very Lovecraftian, or dare I say biblical, creature that is completely indescribable by any sense of the modern realm. Finally, I'll read the final mention of the staircase in this search and rescue thread. This will be my final update for now. Things have deteriorated here to a degree that I didn't foresee. I didn't know how much writing about the things that are happening out here would affect every single part of my life. And maybe that was stupid of me. Maybe I should have considered it more seriously, but honestly, I just thought I was writing about things that a few people would want to hear. I didn't think it would get this much attention. People ask me about the
Oh.
stairs now. It doesn't happen every day, but when it does happen, I never really know what to say. My bosses know someone's talking about them, and I'm sure that if they know, the higher-ups know.
Oh, no.
And I can tell
Oh,
you that they
no.
aren't
You
happy
gotta be
about it.
careful. I bet.
I've been formally told that I am not to speak a word about them to anyone anymore, which is part of the reason this has to be my final update. I can't risk my job for this. As much as it's been wonderful to get a lot of these things off my mind, I still do love my work, and I need to be out here. If anything, my being aware of what's really going on is enough reason to stick it out. I may not be able to tell people that they're out there, but if I see them, I can direct traffic away to somewhere safer. After this, he goes on to discuss other stories, but as far as this thread goes, that is the final mention of the stairs. So, final thoughts on it. It seems that the stairs are a supernatural entity that appear and disappear at random throughout the woods. It is my belief that these are crossovers into dimensions of creatures that reside in the woods, such as that of the Wendigo or the Dogman and things like that, which are all also mentioned throughout the stories. Not only that, but it seems that the
did
Forest
catch that a
Service
little bit.
knows about these and try to keep the public quiet on them, obviously to both keep it out of media eye, but to continue the revenue for the park services. I know the author said that there is a book in the works, and I hope that comes to fruition because that'd be very interesting to read. But for right now, make of that what you will, come to your own conclusions, and please let me know what you think.
Thank you all so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. I know this is a little bit more low effort than things I normally do, but it really means a lot to see all the support. So I want to go ahead and thank my patrons of Huntsman and Above. Thank you, Eddie Shoemaker.
No,
thank
I
you,
love
Kayla.
it. That was just so
Thank
relaxing.
you, Pef. Thank you, Benjamin Allen. And thank you, Tim Freelove. And thank you to all the other patrons who are a
That's
part
very
on every
relaxing
tier. It
to
really
watch.
does mean a lot. New video later this week, probably. And short story the first of the month. So look forward to that. And thank you guys for everything. So peace out. Bye.
I should watch more of his videos because he's pretty fun to watch, to be completely honest. Oh, that's so good.
Thanks for watching! Like and subscribe for a video every day at noon.